And here we are, New Thought Tuesdays on Tuesday, April the 15th. So I'm coming to you just outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And Rich is back in LA. And why do you assume I'm coming to you from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, folks? Do you have any thoughts about any assumptions about that? Well, we're going to be talking about assuming the third agreement from Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements. It's about jumping to conclusions. Does anybody do that? Rich, do you ever do jump to
No, never jump to conclusion.
Never. Good for you. Good for you. Do you ever lie?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I jump to conclusions all the time. It's really funny because when you paint these pictures in your head about what's going on, like Jen was really nervous. My wife, she teaches after school art, and she was really nervous because she had these kind of older kids coming, and she was up all night worrying about taking care of these older kids. They're like 4 or 5 years older than the other kids in the group. And she just couldn't sleep all night. She kept waking up. When she got home from work the other day, she said, "You know what? It actually went really good. All that worrying, all that sleep loss was for what? For nothing." She assumed that she was not going to be able to take care of these kids. They're not going to enjoy the art. They're not going to be able to be with these younger kids because they're older. And so, you know, you can't assume because
Well,
when you do, you create that.
when you do that, that assuming is when our human brain, our human thinking comes up with a story that matches perhaps what's going on in the moment before us, but sometimes it includes our fear, doubt, worry, blame, shame, regret, as opposed to having information that is related to truth and trust. And so like I was on a call this week with a project that I'm going to start working on soon. And there's big gaps of time between when I can work with these people and when we can move this project forward. And the longer the time gets between when I'm able to get hold of them and when I get them on the phone, the more little opportunities for Dean to come up with um, my own stories. And I start assuming something is going on that is generally never going on. And so I got them on the phone actually, they got me on the phone this week, and all they gave me facts, they gave me opinions, they gave me ideas, all kinds of things. And that area I was starting to assume in the direction of was completely frivolous and not helping me at all. So what Ruiz talks about, and I'm going to just be, we've been talking about um, being impeccable with your word. That's the first agreement. Oh my God, the second agreement, Rich, the second agreement. Oh gosh. Well, the third agreement is don't assume anything. And
Where's my
this,
little book?
the second agreement is to remember the second
Yeah.
agreement. Now, the second
Don't
agreement,
assume that you're going to remember the
stop
second
taking it
agreement.
personally. So the second agreement is stop taking it personally. And today we're talking about
Yeah.
the third, don't assume anything. And what Rich and I recommend to all of you is when it comes to these ideas, being impeccable with your word, not
Mm,
taking anything personally, not assuming anything, it's not so much to go with, oh, I'm generally pretty good about that. And that's terrific. The idea is to go allow yourself to be mindful of when you are not impeccable with your word, when you are not, when you are taking things personally, and when you're assuming.
yeah.
So hopefully it's a very small portion of your week, but what we're encouraging you to do is really get the last remnants of something that may not be serving you or is not serving you out of your awareness. So with each of these, impeccable with your word and not taking anything personally and not assuming, find that place where you perhaps do it. and spend some time releasing that energy and finding a new way to address it. And that's with all of these four agreements. With not assuming anything, uh, there's nothing to do. So what Ruiz says is there's nothing to do. Nothing others do is because of you.
Yeah.
What others say and do is a projection of their own reality. And so that's one of the reasons we don't take it personally. That's one of the reasons we focus on being impeccable with our word. And this assuming when we come up with these negative stories, often it has to do with, again, our blame, shame, regret, fear, doubt, and worry. Recognize that and release it. What do? We stop or pause, we take a deep breath, and we just observe what's really going on right now. What's really going on right now. And
Yeah.
that is how we can embrace all of these agreements. A lot of times when we do these assuming, it's kind of a mental shortcut. Like, let me fill in the blanks. There's lots of blanks, so let me fill them in, and let me fill them in with my insecurity or my doubt, my fear, my worry, or as Ernest Holmes would say, my false beliefs that cloud the truth. And that's what Ruiz starts talking about. So if they're like these false beliefs,
Mm.
this mental noise, we were talking about earlier, the mental noise.
Yeah.
The mental noise is just kind of this. It's our ego. It's my ego coming in. It's that, and that's small ego, that human stuff coming in and breaking in the way. So what should we do, Rich? What how do we recognize our assumptions? I was actually just talking about this before. That place of, how do we recognize our assumptions? How do you know when you're assuming? That's in the part
Uh,
at part two of our notes right there.
well, assuming everything. To me, assuming everything. Every time you're thinking, you're assuming things. You're creating that movie of your life, okay? Using my metaphor, life is a movie created by an infinite filmmaker. And so when you're experiencing things, you're just assuming that this is this and this is that and this is going to happen this way and this is how it's going to unfold. And then a lot of it is that because the mind is so powerful that you can assume and think these things, then you create them. For instance, my wife, you
Okay.
know, it could have gone the other way, that because she was so worried and upset about not being able to take care of these two kids that were older than the other younger kids, it could have very well, the power of the mind, she could have got in there and it could have been a mess. The kids could have, like, just because her energy would have been one of, these kids aren't gonna, they're not gonna get it. They're not gonna like it here. They're gonna be upset with me. And then her energy would create more of that. Fortunately, in the morning, she got up and prayed and meditated and got connected with spirit and went in there she shifted her thoughts about, yeah, this is going to go great. When she left the house that day, she goes, this is going to be a great day. I'm going to really enjoy these kids and they're going to enjoy me. Right then and there, through prayer and meditation, she shifted it up. All night long, she was in another frame of mind worrying about it. But in the morning, she got up, did her prayer work, got back into center, and created that. The kids had a great time. They loved her. They want to come back, and she's got two new clients now. So there you go. Let me explain this in terms of my infinite filmmaker teachings. That let's say in the world of filmmaking, you're assuming everything that you're assuming, it's like an outdated storyboard. And you're acting upon what you think is happening rather than checking in with what's truly unfolding. And a good, for instance, is that let's say you're a low budget filmmaker, and at the last minute, your cinematographer gives you a call and says, "Look, I can't do it. I've got another gig or I'm sick or some other excuse. And so a part of you thinks that, oh my God, my film's going to fall apart, and you start worrying, and then maybe you're not moving into it with confidence, and you start thinking, oh, I might as well drop it. This film's never going to work out. My cinematographer's not available. I got everybody already. The funding's there, and I'm in a mess. But then you go into prayer and meditation, and all of a sudden you come out of it, and I'm telling you, this happens. You get a phone call. The cinematographer that you originally wanted but was busy with another job calls and says, look, they postponed my shoot for 3 months and I'm available. Do you need me? And he says, yeah, and that's the way it works. That's the way it works. Like with Jennifer and her kids, you go into prayer and meditation. The universe is always conspiring for your highest good. It's always taking care of you. Everything is unfolding in perfect order. The right people, place, and things are all opening up for you. Now, was it a coincidence that this guy, his job that he was on was postponed for 3 months? No, I don't think so. I think it was the fact that the director got into the feeling tone of through his meditation and prayer, that everything was going to work out. And the universe, I believe the universe, God, divine presence, already had that in place. And because he was in alignment, that door opened up. Whereas if he stayed in the fear, doubt, and worry, he would have taken actions, maybe went and jumped in and hired another cinematographer that wasn't as good as the cinematographer that he had. Just, I'll take anybody. Give me anybody. I'll just go out and find some schmuck off the street to shoot my movie. He could have moved in that direction, but no, he didn't. He stayed centered, he prayed, he meditated, and the universe opened that door to his highest good. So, anyways, does that explain it?
And part of that is, and I love how you say, I believe that. I believe that this is what's going on. When you're choosing something, a belief that serves you and serves the idea of an infinite filmmaker, as in your teaching, that you use that as to see that unfolding in life, and it brings more of that unfolding in life, which then brings up even more trust. It allows us to have even more trust when we believe, when we deeply believe, when we deeply use these four agreements, not just simply for human awareness, but for spiritual awareness. It deepens our faith, our understanding of faith, and how we can put it into play in this world. So I put some stuff in the chat for the folks who are in the inner circle. For those of you who don't know about the inner circle is our membership based group. And after our conference each week on social media, we go in the inner circle and get confidential and personal and take them even deeper so that we can relate to them even more deeply in the inner circle. Love you guys. Welcome. And there's some information that we're going to talk about right now in the chat. This idea about, okay, you've got this blame, shame, regret, some concerns, some worries. You were talking about, is this a coincidence or not? The thing that we encourage you to be aware of is that there is just one intelligence that is greater than what we are experiencing right here and right now. There's one intelligence.
Mm.
And that one mind is always revealing the next step. Like what you were saying with the cinematographer, there's that through trust and truth and what we call creative balance, the perfect story is unfolding. A lot of times what we do with the assuming is we create a not perfect story. And so what we're encouraging you to do, and what Ruiz is encouraging you to do, is to listen and receive. Just listen. As we were talking about, stop or pause, take a deep breath and listen and receive. And then you can ask, you can do something like, I ask, I ask, I clarify, I stay open. Just asking, clarifying, and staying open instead of locking into what I call sometimes the bad and wrong story. Keep an open mind, being open to receiving your highest and best good instead of assuming anything. And but on the human standpoint, there's two things that Ruiz and Rich and I are all asking when we start assuming. Like I assumed about that project I was working on, or the example of the of your wife assuming the experience was not going to go flowingly. Stop when you're talking with somebody else or even talking to yourself. Ask yourself the question, what did you mean by? So if you're talking to somebody else, what did you mean by if you're engaging in this? Or if you're talking to yourself, what did I mean by creating this negative story? Stop and pause and just search for more truth and trust with the people or the situation that you're dealing with. Can you help ask people, can you help me understand? What do you mean by? Or I'm curious, being openly, generously, genuinely curious, as opposed to filling in those blanks as we tend to do when we assume things. From a spiritual standpoint, I ask myself, and because I love this idea of what's really mine to know here? What's really mine to know? And my old thing of the how is this happening for me, instead of filling in the blanks that are okay, this is not going in the direction that I would like it to. How's this happening for me? So okay, all right, how's this happening
Yeah.
for me? I'm assuming first, I always assume that New Thought Tuesdays is always going to go smoothly, no matter what the stuff that goes on. I always assume that New Thought Tuesdays is going to go smoothly. I'm used to working with Rich, and that's a story that I pull up. So today we're here. We didn't get where we wanted to go. We were going to be in Gettysburg to live stream today. And so we're outside of a Starbucks. We got their Wi-Fi. We're doing this thing. We're all set. My family is in the room. They're on the inner circle. And what happens? A dump truck pulls up behind our car and has been going back and forth for this whole time, to the point where the dump truck operator, who's putting off a dumpster, knocked on my window and asked me to get out of the car so I could help him move the dump truck. So, because I'm always assuming using the best story, and it's like, okay, what else can you bring on? What else can you bring on? We got a red dump truck going back and forth. But I choose to assume that New Thought Tuesdays is always going to go smoothly. And it's going to go smoothly, and we're going to go into the inner circle. But before we do, please know that if you want to know more about New Thought Tuesdays, go to www.newthoughttuesdays.com and you'll find out all the information that you need to know. You can click around and find out how you can join us every Tuesday, and how, if this is good for you, how to join the inner circle. So, but before we go on, anything you want to share before we go into the inner circle, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, a quote by Ernest Holmes
Excellent.
from The Science of Mind. He says that we don't get what we want, we get what we believe, and that our beliefs are formed by our assumptions, and they'll keep us creating more of what we don't want, you know? And so, anyways, I just want to put that in there. And, Dean, you're talking about, I just want to say one more thing that, spiritually speaking, I always ask, what is truth? You know, I can assume this and I can assume that's happening, but what is the truth of what's happening? What is the truth? Truth is that there's an infinite power and presence. I'm connected to it. My highest good is always knocking on my door. Everything is unfolding in perfect order. My life is perfect, whole, and complete. There's one power, one presence, one life. It's perfect, whole, and complete. That life is my life now. I mean, getting into that mindset, and that's what the Infinite Filmmaker teachings are all about, and living in concert with life is all about. It's getting you into that feeling tone, that vibration of everything is perfect, complete, right here, right now. And when you believe that and start to think in that way, it becomes that, as Ernest Holmes says. We don't get what we want, we get what we believe. And so we're here to change your belief system from one of lack and limitations to one of abundance, prosperity, perfect right livelihood, right here and right now. And
Yep.
so come on into the inner circle and join us as we talk about spiritual principles that are going to allow you to create the life you desire to be living right here, right now.
Yep.
Now. So
So we'll
let's
see you
work the inner
next week
circle.
on Tuesdays. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Richard. Thank you, everybody in the inner circle. We'll be in there in just a second. Thank you, dump truck operator. I'm glad you were able to get what you needed done without my help. I'll see you next week.